This happened a few months ago. I was barely keeping my ranch afloat. I'm Mike, 45, and it felt like time was running out. My dad put his heart into this place and I was losing it. Livestock prices were terrible, and I was desperate for a miracle. Then one day, a stranger came by. He wanted my sick bull. At first I thought it was a joke. I was losing hope, and I guess I wanted to believe in something. I made the trade. He brought me a creature in a crate. It looked odd, but I needed to believe it could help me. I thought it was a new start. At first the creature was calm. It had dark fur and big eyes, but it didn't seem dangerous. I named it Shadow because it was always lurking in the corner of my sight. At night, I started seeing it more clearly. The moonlight shone on its eyes and I felt uneasy. I tried to shake it off. I had chores to do. I told myself it wasn't real. Then my sheep started vanishing. One morning I found one missing. No signs of struggle, just gone. I thought maybe it wandered off, but I was wrong. It happened again and again. With every missing sheep, I felt a heavier weight on my chest. I couldn't take it anymore. Every night I peeked out of the window. There it stood, just outside, watching. I felt it was staring right into my soul. I kept thinking, what did I bring here? I struggled to sleep. I could hear whispers on the wind, but they were too faint to understand. I thought I was going crazy, but I could feel eyes on me. A week later, I decided to confront it. I went outside around midnight. The air felt thick and heavy. I could hear my heart thumping as I stepped into the dark. The stars twinkled, but I felt cold. I steadied myself and called out, "What do you want?" Nothing but silence, just me and that creature. Its eyes glimmered back at me. I couldn't move for a second, then it twitched. My breath caught in my throat. Was it getting bigger? I shook my head. I had to be imagining it. But in that moment, I knew it was something terrible. I felt the ranch close in on me. This place used to feel like home, but now it felt like a cage. I stepped closer to it. "You're not like the others," I said, but it didn't respond. The grass rustled behind me and I turned fast. Nobody was there, just darkness. I looked back, and the creature seemed to grin. I stumbled back, fear swirling inside me. I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd made a terrible mistake. I needed to get rid of it, but part of me was scared. What if I tried and it didn't let me? I didn't know what to do anymore. Each night, it watched, and I felt myself slipping. I never went to bed without looking out the window. I still hear those whispers now and then. I don't sleep well. The ranch is no longer just my father's legacy. It's a nightmare I can't wake up from. What did I trade for? I fear I'll never find out. I couldn't shake the dread. Each day, the ranch felt more foreign, more like a haunted house than the farm I'd known. I started to notice other things going wrong. The fences needed mending, water troughs were dry. It was like I couldn't keep up with even the basics anymore. Shadow loomed in my mind as a dark cloud, stealing my focus. That morning, I found another sheep missing. I stumbled out to the field, calling for it, but it was just gone. The sun was high, baking the land, yet all I felt was cold dread gripping my stomach. The whispers had returned too. They drifted through the air like dry leaves skittering across the ground, faint but persistent. "Come, come." I took a deep breath. I had to check the barn. It had been a while since I'd really investigated. Maybe there was something I'd missed, a clue, a way to fix this madness. As I walked toward the barn, the low sun behind me cast long shadows. All I could hear was my footsteps and the soft creak of the barn doors as they swung slowly open. Inside, it smelled of hay and wood. I flicked on the light. Dust danced in the beams, and I scanned the familiar surroundings. Then I noticed something odd. A patch of dirt near the stacks of hay was different, disturbed and dark. As I got closer, my heart raced. It was like it had been dug up. I knelt down and saw something glinting. I pushed aside the dirt and uncovered the corner of a metal object. I pulled it out, and my stomach sank. It was a collar, one of my missing sheep's marked with a bold ID tag. "What in the hell?" I muttered, spinning around wildly. My heart pounded in my chest, panic tightening my throat. Had Shadow done this? Did it have some kind of power over my animals? I had to confront it, but I felt paralyzed. Just then, I heard a rustling sound from outside the barn. It was faint, barely audible, but enough to make me freeze. I stepped cautiously to the door and peered out. The sunlight sliced through the trees, and I could see the figure. There was something in the distance, a dark shape blending in with the shadows of the pines. I squinted to make it out, but it was too far away. Then I saw those familiar eyes, reflecting the sunlight. That unsettling grin flashed across Shadow's face. I stumbled backward, my breath hitching. I could feel the weight of its gaze pressing down on me. "What do you want?" I whispered, but all that came in response was the whisper of the wind through the leaves. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I caught movement near the barn. A figure, cloaked in darkness, stepped into the light. Panic gripped me as the whispers grew louder, merging with my racing heart. I turned to face the door, but it was too late. The shadows were closing in. That's when I heard a voice, low and raw, cutting through the thick air. "You shouldn't have come here." I felt my pulse quicken. I blanched. I was not alone anymore, and whatever had come for me had arrived. My heart slammed against my ribs as I peered into the shadows. "Who's there?" The words slipped out, trembling. I took a hesitant step back, but the weight of the darkness held me in place. The figure stepped closer, revealing a face twisted in a mix of anger and sorrow. It was an old ranch hand, someone I had known long before this nightmare began. "Cole," I said softly, trying to remember when I had last seen him. "Why are you here?" he snapped, his voice sharp and accusatory. "You shouldn't have come back." "What do you mean? I haven't done anything." The whispers grew louder, and I could hardly hear myself speak. I thought about the collar in my pocket, the missing sheep, and wondered if this was somehow connected. Cole's expression shifted, the anger melting to fear, but it was too late. The shadows behind him seemed to pulse, swirling like living beings waiting to strike. "You have to leave. The land, it knows." "What do you mean? What does it know?" I was desperate for answers, but he was retreating into the dark. I wanted to grab him, to demand he tell me everything, but fear held my feet glued to the dirt floor. Before he could vanish completely, I called out, "What about Shadow? Is it really dangerous?" He stopped, and in that moment, his eyes filled with an ancient knowledge I couldn't fathom. There are stories, things this ranch has seen. He glanced at the dark figure looming behind him. "You're not the first to try save what's been lost." A chill ran down my spine. I took a step forward, hungry for understanding. What do I do? How do I stop this? Then something shifted behind him. The air crackled, and the whispers morphed into wails, howls of anguish. My breath caught in my throat. Cole turned, eyes wide, and I could see the horror in his face. "Run!" he shouted. "Get out of here!" That was all the encouragement I needed. I bolted for the exit, the light outside blinding, but I didn't look back. I stumbled into the open air of the barnyard, searching frantically for safety. But it was too late. The shadows slinked out from the barn like smoke curling to the night sky. A heavy presence seemed to envelop me, pressing down, suffocating. I heard it, low and echoing, a familiar voice mixed with the whispers calling my name. "Come. Come." Just then, I remembered the collar in my pocket. I pulled it out and held it like a talisman. "What do you want with me?" I cried into the void, feeling utterly useless against the growing terror. The shadows responded, "You have something that belongs to us." Panic shot through me. I felt my legs weaken. I was being squeezed by fear. The collar slipped from my fingers and tumbled to the earth, landing among the long grass. That's when I saw it, a dark shape creeping up from the edges of the field. A figure armed with glistening teeth and eyes glowing with the essence of the night. I stumbled back instinctively, the dread pooling deep within me. I couldn't stay out in the open. I had to get inside. But something told me, somewhere deep down, that the true horror had just begun. I turned and ran toward the house, panic spurring my feet faster than I ever thought possible. Every shadow felt alive, reaching for me, clawing at my back. I couldn't let that creature catch up. The wood of the porch creaked ominously underfoot as I leaped inside and slammed the door behind me. The familiar scent of the old place filled my nostrils, but there was something unsettling about it now. I fumbled for the lock, grateful when it clicked into place. I took a moment to steady my breathing, squinting into the dimly lit room. Dust motes floated in the air, almost glowing, but they offered no comfort now. I pressed my back against the door, listening closely. The outside world felt far away, but the whispers still echoed in my mind. The land, it knows. I clenched my fists, frustrated and terrified. I needed answers. Barely aware of how I was acting, I moved deeper into the house. The walls, covered in faded photographs of the ranch's history, felt like they were watching me. I had grown up staring at these same pictures, memories of long days spent under the sun. But now each face seemed twisted, holding secrets I didn't want to uncover. My mind spun with thoughts of Cole, his warnings, the collar, and the creature lurking outside. I scanned the room, my gaze landing on the old desk in the corner, cluttered with dusty books and worn papers. There had to be something there, some clue about what was happening. I approached cautiously, carefully picking my way through scattered items. My fingers brushed against a thick, leather-bound book. The cover was cracked, but the spine held a sense of weight, like it contained important truths. I opened it and began to flip through the yellowed pages. There was a lot about ranching practices and animal husbandry, but then I hit a section marked with ink that seemed far darker. Legends of the land. I leaned in closer, my heart racing. As I read, I felt the weight of the night pressing in. Tales of spirits that roamed the ranch after dark, of deals made with beasts in exchange for prosperity. Then there it was, a mention of Shadow, the ominous figure said to watch ranchers who had made bargains. A chill crept over me as I traced the aged words with my finger. That's when I noticed a loose piece of paper tucked inside the book. I yanked it out, swiftly unfolding it. The words scrawled there weren't part of the book's narrative. If you feel watched, it knows you are here. You cannot hide. The realization hit me like a punch. I was being hunted, and it wasn't just any creature. I felt a shiver race down my spine as the whispers returned, mixing with something more threatening, a chorus of warnings. I quickly returned the book to the table, frantically looking around the room for another way out. I didn't want to stay here and wait for whatever was out there to find me. As I turned, something rustled outside the window, and I froze. My pulse quickened, and I quietly moved towards the curtain, trying to peer outside. What if it was already just beyond the glass? I needed to know. But as I reached for the curtain, the shadows that pooled in the corners of the room shivered violently, as if stirred by an unseen breeze. Then, in a flash, a dark shape leapt across the window and I recoiled, heart racing even faster. The creature was not just watching, it was ready to enter. I had been given a chance to escape, but now my window for freedom was closing fast. I had to confront whatever was out there, but running toward it felt like a death wish. My only choice was the back door, and I had to make it before it made its move. I pushed myself away from the door, every instinct screaming that I needed to move. The back door was my only option, but it felt like a lifetime away. I stole a glance back at the window. Nothing was there anymore, but the weight of something unseen lingered in the air. Steeling myself, I crept toward the kitchen, my footsteps muffled by the worn floorboards. The shadows were thick, and the night outside seemed to have its own heartbeat. I paused at the doorway to the kitchen, catching my breath. It was the heart of the home, where laughter once echoed, now only silence stretched between me and the door. Just as I started to edge around the corner, the faintest sound made me freeze, a whisper. I strained to listen, heart pounding against my ribs. It was soft, almost melodic, but utterly chilling. "Turn back," it urged, wailing like a mournful breeze. I shook my head, trying to dispel the sound as if it were mere air. I couldn't turn back now. I took a deep breath and stepped into the kitchen. The moonlight spilled in through the little window, illuminating the table piled high with dusty dishes. Nothing was out of place, but I felt a shadow hovering at the edge of my vision. The creature was close. Too close. I reached the back door and hesitated. My fingers brushed the cool handle, my mind racing with what might be waiting for me outside. But whatever it was, it had already invaded my space. Maybe confronting it was the only way to put an end to this nightmare. With a burst of determination, I flung the door open. The night air hit me like a wave, heavy and thick. I stepped out, adrenaline spiking. The moon hung full and bright, casting long shadows across the yard. The grass swayed gently, but everything else was deathly still. I peered around, searching for movement, for any sign of the creature. It felt as though the world was holding its breath alongside me. Then suddenly, I heard a low growl, deeper and more resonant than any dog could produce. It came from my left side, near the barn. My heart lurched as the growl morphed into a haunting laugh, sharp, cruel. I edged towards the sound, drawn and repulsed all at once. The barn doors stood slightly ajar, and every instinct urged me to turn and run, but I needed to know what I was facing. As I neared the entrance, the hay inside shifted, as if something huge was shifting its bulk behind the walls. My fear turned into a sickening urge to flee. But what if the creature had answers? What if it knew why it had come for me? If I wanted to uncover the truth, I had to go in. I took a step inside, heart hammering. Then the door slammed shut behind me with a deafening bang. The sudden noise echoed, robbing me of breath. I was trapped, and whatever was lurking in the shadows was ready to reveal itself. The darkness closed in around me like a thick fog. I blinked, trying to adjust to the dimness of the barn. The shapes of old farm equipment loomed in the corners, their outlines shifting as I moved. I had to find a way out, but I needed to gather myself first. The growling laugh echoed again, sending chills racing down my spine. I gripped the edge of a nearby wooden beam, trying to steady my breath. The sound was closer now, a raspy whisper curling through the air. "You shouldn't have come here," it taunted. I fought back the urge to scream. The beam was rough against my fingers, grounding me in a reality that was fading fast. It was just a barn, I told myself. Just a barn with some old clutter. But then I heard it again, a low rustling that seemed to come from above. My heart dropped. I scanned the ceiling, but the shadows merged into an impenetrable blanket. Just when I thought I might be losing my grip on sanity, something fell from a high shelf, hitting the ground with a loud thud. I jumped, my instincts screaming danger. I stumbled back, bumping into a stack of hay bales. They shifted and tumbled, sending a dust cloud swirling around me. I coughed, trying to clear my head. That's when I saw it. A pair of gleaming eyes watching me from the shadows. They were low to the ground, reflecting the moonlight like cold steel. I froze, forgetting to breathe. The laugh returned, cruel and mocking, causing my stomach to churn. "Are you afraid?" it whispered. I opened my mouth to shout, but no sound came out. Instead, I turned on my heel and bolted toward where I thought the door would be. The ball of dread in my chest propelled me forward. As my foot caught on a stray rope, I stumbled, falling hard against the floor. The thud echoed through the barn, drawing attention I desperately wished to avoid. From the corner of my eye, I saw a shadow move closer, filling the doorway behind me. My pulse raced. Maybe I wouldn't escape after all. I scrambled to my feet, heart pounding like a drum. I had to get out. There had to be another way. I dashed across the barn, skirting around old tools and crates, each heavy breath confirming my rising panic. Then I noticed something, an old tractor sitting against the wall, covered in dust, yet strangely intact. I raced toward it, hoping that maybe, just maybe, I could find something useful. I knew I couldn't stay here. The growling was closer, and the laughter enveloped me, taunting me with every step I took. As I reached the tractor, I saw a faint glimmer at its base. It was a key, dangling from a rusty old chain. Hope surged through me as I snatched it up. I had an idea, but just before I could react, the creature lunged from the shadows. Time froze as I locked eyes with it, and in that moment, I knew the nightmare was only beginning. I didn't have time to think. Adrenaline surged through me as I ducked behind the tractor, my heart racing. The growling had intensified, now a low rumble that vibrated through the barn. I was pinned down, clutching the key like a lifeline. The creature was close. I could hear its heavy breathing, a gravelly sound that rattled my bones. I peered around the side of the tractor, taking care to keep my movement slow. The eyes from before had come closer, glowing with a predatory hunger. I needed a plan. The too-quiet barn offered no escape, and I had to make every second count. I turned and searched around the tractor for something, anything that could help me. A metal canister caught my eye. It looked old, but if I could knock it over, maybe it would make enough noise to distract whatever was lurking. I reached for the canister, my fingers trembling. Just then, a sharp clatter echoed from the other end of the barn. I glanced up in time to see a rodent scurrying across the floor, rattling old gear in its wake. The creature's attention snapped to the sound, and I took my chance. With all my strength, I pushed against the canister, and it tumbled over with a loud crash. The noise rang out, and the gleaming eyes shifted, momentarily losing focus. I dashed toward the opposite side of the tractor, praying it would buy me a few precious seconds. Then came the growl. The creature had found its voice, and it sounded furious. I couldn't waste time. I sprinted toward the back of the barn, hoping for a door or a window, any way to escape the nightmare that was hunting me. As I reached the wooden wall, I felt around for an exit. My fingers brushed against rough wood, and I turned to push against a door I hadn't noticed before, wedged between two stacks of hay. It creaked open slowly, revealing a path obscured by shadows. Just as I was about to slip through, the growl erupted again, louder and more furious. I glanced back, my stomach twisting as I saw the creature emerging from the darkness. It was bigger than I had first imagined, its powerful legs propelling it forward with terrifying speed. I squeezed through the door just as it lunged at me. I felt the rush of air as I barely evaded capture. I stumbled out into the night air, gasping for breath. But as I turned to shut the door behind me, a new horror gripped my heart. Outside, the moonlight cast strange shapes across the ground, and I was not alone. Dark silhouettes loomed in the yard, shadows watching me from the edges of the barn, their eyes reflecting the light. I thought I had escaped, but now I knew. Whatever followed me didn't need to be inside the barn to have me trapped. I stood frozen, my heart hammering in my chest. The silhouettes didn't move, yet they felt alive, aware of me in a way that raised the hair on my arms. Shadows crept closer, shifting with an unsettling grace. An icy pang of fear shot through me. Were these more creatures? I needed to keep moving. Forcing myself to look away from the figures, I scanned the yard for an escape route. The dim light revealed a fence to my right, barely visible under the slick moonlight. Maybe if I could get over it, I could find safety among the trees that lined the property. As I turned, a low growl came from behind me. I jerked around, my eyes widening in panic. One of the dark figures from the barn moved into the light. It was not the creature I'd just fled, but something smaller, but no less terrifying. A dog, or at least it looked like one. Its fur was matted and dark, its jaw too broad, its frame too strong. It snarled, baring teeth that gleamed like shards of broken glass. I backpedaled, my feet stumbling on the uneven ground. There was no time to think. I turned again toward the fence and sprinted. I could hear the growl escalate behind me, then a booming bark pierced the night, rattling my bones and pushing me faster. I reached the fence, a tall boundary that seemed to loom like a wall against my escape. Grasping the rough wood, I scrambled up, feeling the splinters bite into my palms. As I climbed, I looked back to see the hunched figure of the dog, muscles coiled and ready to leap. With one last push, I threw my leg over the top of the fence and landed hard on the other side. Agony seared through my ankle as I stumbled. I barely had time to regain my balance before the creature launched itself over the barrier. I could barely believe its speed. My heart raced as I tore into the woods, branches slashing at my face. The dog was hot on my heels, driven by whatever primal instinct called it to chase. I didn't know what would happen if it caught me, but I sensed it wouldn't end well. I ran deeper into the trees, adrenaline fueling my escape. The shadows danced around me, each rustle in the undergrowth sending shockwaves of panic through my body. I focused on putting distance between us, but I could feel it right behind me, its breath of fierce wind against my back. That's when I heard it. A voice carried on the wind, a low, guttural sound. It wasn't just the dog anymore. There were more. My pulse spiked as an unnatural chorus of howls rang out through the trees. I glanced over my shoulder, and my heart sank. Not just the dog, but shadows moving in the darkness, converging towards me. They were pack animals, wild and hungry. I pushed forward, my legs burning with effort, desperate to stay ahead. But then I stumbled over a root, crashing to the forest floor. Pain shot through my knee as I fell. In that instant I realized I was trapped. I looked back, breathless and terrified, as everything closed in around me. I scrambled to my feet, thigh muscles screaming in protest as I tried to shake off the fall. But the moment felt endless. The shadows were closing in. I glanced back to see the dog, no, the creature, bounding toward me, jaws snapping like a trap. I took a shaky breath, but it only filled my lungs with the sharp smell of wet earth and pine. I dashed toward a cluster of trees, hoping to lose it in the thick underbrush. My heart pounded louder, drowning out the world around me. The howls grew louder, echoing off the trees like a twisted song. There were more of them, and they were coming for me. With every step, my panic swelled. I ducked behind a trunk, pressing my back against the bark as I fought to catch my breath. The ground beneath me was soft, an eerie reminder of the darkness that surrounded me. But I had to think. I couldn't let them corner me. Then I remembered the stories I heard about the old rancher who lived nearby. They said he had strange creatures on his land, things that moved in the shadows and stalked the night. I had brushed them off as silly folklore, but now I wasn't so sure. Was this what the rancher had traded his dying bull for? I stifled a shudder as another howl echoed closer this time. I peered around the tree, desperately searching for an escape route. That's when I spotted it, a narrow path, barely visible under the thick canopy. It wound deeper into the woods. Maybe I could lose them there. But just as I was about to bolt toward it, a flicker of movement caught my eye. From the corner of the clearing, several figures stepped into the dim light, their silhouettes eerily familiar. They looked like those creatures from the barn, their eyes reflecting the moonlight like polished obsidian. They joined the dog, forming a wall of predatory intent. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. This was madness. Fear gripped me as I weighed my options. I could either stay hidden and risk being found or sprint again into the abyss, where who knows what awaited me. Then, suddenly, the growling ceased. An electric tension filled the air. I glanced around the tree. The creatures were no longer moving. They stood perfectly still, their gazes locked on me as if they were deciding what to do. Then everything shifted. The largest creature, a shadow among shadows, stepped forward. It tilted its head, a strange curiosity in its posture. I could hardly breathe as the rest of the pack followed suit, their eyes narrowing as if they were finally noticing my fear. Before I could process it, a chilling thought hit me. Were they not just beasts, but something more? Something that could understand? And that's when I caught a glimmer of silver behind the largest creature, a tiny, luminescent object, drawing my gaze in a way that felt magnetic. What was it? My heart thudded in my chest as I realized I had to make a choice. I could either run or step closer to whatever truth lay ahead. But as I hesitated, ready to flee, I heard a voice behind me, soft and insistent. "Don't run." The voice echoed through the woods like a long-forgotten melody, snapping me out of my paralyzed state. I turned slowly, scanning the shadows for the source, my heart pounding. "Don't run," it whispered again, this time wrapping around me like a warm breeze. I stepped forward, drawn by the sound, even as my instincts screamed at me to flee. Beneath the moonlight, the figures in front of me shifted but did not advance. The largest of them remained still, an oddly regal presence watching intently. "Who are you?" I croaked, my voice barely above a whisper, yet it carried a sense of desperation. "Not who," the voice replied, trailing like smoke. "What?" I took another cautious step closer, captivated by the glimmer I had seen earlier, now barely visible behind the largest creature. My pulse raced. "What do you want from me?" A soft growl rumbled from the pack, but the larger one pressed forward, a strange calm settling over my panic. "It is not what we want, but what is sought. You have come on borrowed time." Those words sent shivers down my spine. "What do you mean?" I forced out, caught in the creature's gaze which seemed to shimmer with ancient knowledge. "The land is restless. The offerings made were in hope, but darkness has followed." The voice carried a weight that forced my heart to ache with each silent beat. "The bull you traded, you need to understand what it brought." The pack murmured, restless, but the larger creature stood firm, eyes blazing with intensity, sweeping me into a reality I couldn't grasp. "Shadow, it has chosen you," it declared, and my breathing faltered at the implications. "Chosen me," I echoed, confusion clouding my mind. "To do what?" "The old deals are not forgotten. Understand this, Mike. What you hold is a bridge. In surrendering the bull, your fate intertwined with the creatures of this land. You walked into a pact, a connection. It has gifted solace but demanded tribute." The realization struck me like lightning. The missing sheep, the whispers, was this creature, Shadow, some guardian? Was it keeping something else at bay? I glanced at the collated figures around me. Fear still gripped my heart, yet curiosity fought to surface. "What tribute?" I asked, my voice trembling in the silent woods. "Your choice is at hand," the voice continued, drifting like ethereal fog. "To sever ties would demand sacrifice, a reckoning more profound." Sacrifice? I felt the weight of the world close in on me. But I didn't ask for any of this. And then the shadows moved, a ripple traveling through the pack as the larger figure edged closer. "Willing or not, the ranch and its history are part of you now. You must decide if you will fight it or accept the course set before you. Will you seek retribution, or will you surrender?" Torn between the truth I couldn't fully grasp and the fear that gripped me, I hesitated, each shadowy gaze holding me tight. What if I refuse? For a moment, silence enveloped the woods, thick and suffocating. The large creature tilted its head, eyes reflecting an unfathomable depth. Then you will be consumed by the darkness you do not understand. You will become a whisper, a breath lost in the wind. As those words settled over me, I felt the weight of the truth, the depth of the choice I faced. The land seemed to hold its breath around me. The glimmer behind the creature drew my attention once more. Was it hope? A way out? "What is that?" I pointed, and the creature took a step back, revealing a small silver bell gleaming brightly against the shadows. "It is your choice, Mike," it urged softly. "Ranchers of old chose the bell to forge a new path, a song to unravel the dark, but only if played with intent, a promise that the cycles would not repeat." My breath caught in my throat. The bell. It felt like a lifeline, but I was inundated with uncertainty. A path laid before me. Was it the freedom I craved? And yet, what would it cost? I locked eyes with the creature. What will it take? And there it was again, the hushed chorus, the howls of the pack blending with the whispers of the land. The darkness lingered, and beneath it, the flicker of hope veiled in ambiguity. Choose wisely, for nothing in this world is ever simply given. I stood at the precipice, torn between fleeing into the woods where nothing would wait for me and surrendering to this strange pact in a way I had yet to understand. The forest around me remained alive, suffocating and echoing with anticipation. As shadows shifted, I grasped the truth before me. I had run long enough. Change was coming. The question now lay in what it meant for me, and if risking the unknown would lead me to reclaim my destiny or unravel it entirely. "Then I accept," I whispered, bracing myself against the weight of my decision. But the shadows were waiting, and they held secrets that would forever change the land I once thought I knew.